Welcome home, Super Frankie Lampard. As you can see, not much has changed since the last time you were here. Chelsea lose 1-0 to Wolverhampton. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour.
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is your Chelsea match review, but more specifically a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Wolverhampton Wolves. Before we get into all of that, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. You know what it is already. We're looking to grow this channel, and I need your help to do that. I need you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button to keep up with the latest and the newest. It'll help us with the algorithm. Every like goes a long way. It'll help my partners who go by the name of Major League Socks. And if you ever want to walk in the footsteps to greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link will be in the description. Guys, I really don't know what there's to gripe about right now. We are in the mire, have been all season. You know, we just fired Graham Potter, brought in Frankie Lampard, which I think is a good decision. It's a bit of a feel-good story for the supporters and the terraces and whatnot, and also in the dressing room. He's a guy that is very familiar with the personalities in there and can hopefully coax some sort of performances out of them in the Champions League. I'm not necessarily elated at the fact that we are still undecided as to where we want to go as a club going forward, who's going to take us forward. But I am very excited that they decided to give Frank Lampard another chance to, you know, at least say goodbye to the fans the right way, at least provide us with somebody who has the identity of the club at his heart, somebody that understands the ethos of the club, somebody that can pass it on to the players, continue his work that he was doing back in 2019. So nothing negative about bringing Frank Lampard back to me other than the fact that we still don't have an idea of how we want to play. We still don't have that long-term manager. But outside of that, it's great to see him back. Now, in terms of this game against the Wolves, I don't know if there's much that we can even speak on that we haven't spoken to death. You know, the lack of physicality up front, the lack of finishing quality up front, the lack of real presence in the midfield, the lack of real ball winners in the midfield, lack of real physicality in the midfield. You know, all of these things are the problems that Chelsea have against teams that like to play physically and aggressively. And it's just a problem that we're not going to be able to fix no matter how you rejig the lineup, no matter who you bring into the lineup. We just don't have that quality in the side. Now, we spent a lot of money in the last two windows for two reasons in particular. The first was to replace the players that we lost in the summer of last year. And the second was to buy the dynamic players to take us forward as a club. But the one thing that we've missed throughout this entire process is addressing the need for physicality, the need for a ball winner in that midfield, the need for physicality up front. We just don't have any of that. Like, it's a void that has been with this club for quite some time now, where we just cannot physically match teams who want to play aggressively, who want to like impose themselves on us. And you know, the end result is Chelsea tried to play on the flanks. So because the middle has been locked off and we can't get our most intelligent ball players on the ball where they can like actually do something with it physically, we work it out to the wings, work it out to the flanks to, you know, either our fullbacks or wingbacks or to our wide men. And the end result is just trying to spam it across where one player is in there attacking it. So in the end, we end up just spamming these crosses out wide because we cannot take control of the midfield. We cannot take control of the central areas of the pitch. And the space is usually afforded to us out wide. That's why we have Ben Chilwell out there. That's why we have, you know, Reece James out there. That's why we play them those balls, you know, Cucurella today. And the problem is when we spam in those crosses now, we just don't have the box presence to attack those balls correctly. You know, we don't have a beefy, you know, aerial presence in the box that can like win headers. You have Kai Havertz going up against Kilman and Dawson and not winning any of those duels whatsoever. So the question you got to ask yourself is, why is that still our go-to tactic? You know, work it down the flanks when we can't work it inside and spam it across and hoping that somebody gets on the end of it. You know, we just don't have a team that's structured or physically set up to, you know, play that way. Every chance that Chelsea got on the break yesterday was basically down the flanks, and it basically just felt like we're just running down a cul-de-sac. There's just nowhere to go. We're just hoping that we're fast enough to keep ahead of the Wolves defenders, and if not, then we just stop and recycle possession again. You know, and this is, as much as we had a lot of possession yesterday, we didn't use very much of it very well because we weren't able to get into the danger dangerous areas. For reasons I've already said, we just lack physicality anytime we tried to go into those central areas. And this is not speaking to the likes of Kovacic and Enzo and even like Conor Gallagher for that matter. It's the fact that that middle area of the pitch, there was so much trepidation and a timid style of play there that we could not go there with any regularity and felt good about what we're trying to do. As soon as we tried to put it in the middle of the pitch, we didn't really have the ability to hold on to the ball, so we just recycle it back wherever it came from and, work it out wide. And as soon as we worked it out wide, that was where we started to get a little bit more endeavor going forward. The problem was, while we're running forward, running down this cul-de-sac, there's nothing coming back into the middle of the pitch. It's amazing to me how much of our play goes down the flanks, and we still have not yet figured out what kinds of runs our attackers are making. We still haven't orchestrated any sort of an attacking intent down there. Like, so much of the crosses come from Cucurella, Chilwell, Reece James, even Ruben Loftus-Cheek when he plays out there. And we still have not yet orchestrated where we want the runs to go. We still haven't said, okay, when Reece James comes down the right flank, I want you to go near post Kai Havertz. He's still just running north-south. He's still just hoping that, the ball will come to feet rather than making a movement to get him into an area where he can get on the ball or, at least fool the defenders. It's unbelievable that we've spent so much time, so much money in these wide areas and still have not orchestrated any sort of an attack that is conducive to creating goal-scoring opportunities in those areas. We don't have the box presence. We don't thrust enough people forward into the box. And when we're there, we don't have any sort of orchestration as to who's going where when we get into those positions. So it's just meaningless attack after meaningless attack and recycling possession for no apparent reason other than just to keep the ball. I mean, when's the last time you've seen a striker peel off to the penalty spot to receive a cross? When was the last time you've seen somebody take a chance back post, a striker take a chance back post and receive the ball there to score the goal? It seems to me like every one of our runs is always north-south and always looking for ball to feet rather than trying to make a movement to get into a better area to score goals. Like, so many of these crosses from Reece James today were just so tasty. And if there was any sort of orchestration between, the crosser and the receiver, whether it be Kai Havertz, Raheem Sterling, any of them, Pulisic, whoever it was that was coming back post or coming near post or coming right down the middle, you'd expect them to make a more intelligent run to at least get into open space into the box. I mean, I know the box is often overcrowded, especially when Chelsea go down 1-0, but the only way you're going to create space is with movement. The only way you're going to pull these defenders out of position and get somebody else in a better position is with movement, and I just don't see enough of that in the box. I don't see enough ideation in the box to create opportunities for us to score goals. We're just spamming crosses and hoping that it finds the feet of a receiver, and that's not good enough at this level, especially when we rely on those crosses so heavily. We need to see more patterns of play. We need to see more movement off the ball. We need to see more decoys. We need to see more players pulling defenders out of position to get better players in position. And it's just not happening enough. We're not even seeing the late runs into the box and a cutback to the top of the box to see somebody like Enzo get on it. It's just not happening enough. And when it does, it develops so slowly that we cannot capitalize it. There's like 6, 7, 8 defenders in front of the ball by the time we realize where the cutback is. And, to be a cutting edge force in goal scoring and whatnot, we need to be moving the ball quicker and utilizing cutbacks when we have numbers in transition. It's just not there enough. But the truth about this club is evident, especially against this game against the Wolves. We just lack balance all over the pitch. We do not have anyone that plays with any sort of physicality. We do not have anyone that wins the ball outside of N'Golo Kante. We do not have anyone up top that can hold up the ball and play with any sort of physical presence up top. We have no head. We have no head to the attack. We have nobody as a reference point. And these problems have been plaguing us the entire season and even beyond that, even under Thomas Tuchel. We lack physicality, we lack real grit, and the balance is just completely off. We have so many players in the midfield that play a completely similar role. And no, the answer is not playing Zakaria in the midfield. It's not, he doesn't provide you with physicality. He provides you with, a physical presence. Like, he's a big boy and he gets up and down the pitch, but he's not defensively sound enough. He doesn't pass the ball accurately enough. He's not a guy that will physically dominate opponents. We need somebody in that regard, somebody that can really be a physical presence. We need a physical presence up top the pitch. The days of, I harken back to the days of Diego Costa being such a nuisance, occupying 2 defenders, providing space for Eden Hazard to do the things that he did on the pitch. This is what you need in the Premier League. You cannot play in the Premier League with a midfield that does not have a true destroyer, a true general in the midfield that can just marshal, like an Essien, Michael Like we had so many players like that. Even Mikel was another guy that would just not take, would not take any sort of physical confrontation lying down. He would be a guy that would engage there. We just don't have anyone that does that in the midfield. We don't have anyone further up in the pitch that can hold up the ball and play with any physicality there. So the problems are tenfold with this team, man. We have no problem in Europe where the games are less helter-skelter and physical and aggressive. Teams usually play off you a little bit more. You can have more time on the ball. But as soon as we play in the Premier League, that problem is a glaring problem for this Chelsea side. And until we properly address it by balancing the squad with a little bit more physicality, with a little bit more presence up top, we're going to see this game on repeat over and over and over again. Teams know that when they play Chelsea, we do not have enough physical presence to combat it. And of course, you can combat that with clever movement, trickery on the pitch. You can combat it with a good technical player like we saw with João Felix. He's very good on the ball. He's able to disable those lines because when teams play a little bit more aggressively, he's able to spin in behind with, his intelligent feet and whatnot. But we just don't have enough of that in the side. And so much of what we do is dependent on how the refs want to call the game. How many times did Chelsea get on the break and get pulled back? And that is normally an automatic yellow. But we just do not get those calls, and the defenders continue to play aggressively, continue to take these chances, and until they get called, they're going to continue to do it. So the game marches on with, obviously Wolverhampton just camping out, and whenever Chelsea get a chance on the break, they just either foul or, take a cynical foul, do not get carded. That continues on for long enough. And if that continues on long enough before the referees actually pull out their card, they're playing right into the hands of the Wolves. But I gotta end it there. I really don't know what else to say. It's there to behold. Chelsea just don't have the physicality to compete in the Premier League against, the likes of the Wolves, likes of Southampton who play a physical midfield. It's just these teams that we should be having no problem to play through. We lack the physicality to beat them. And then we also lack the technical ability to dribble past and destabilize the lines outside of maybe João Felix. Most of our plays go down the flanks because that's where the space is. And then when we're trying to look for the cutbacks and the crosses into the box, we lack the box presence, and we lack the patterns of play to make the movement to get into the areas where we can affect the crosses coming into the box. You would think by now there would be some sort of coordination in that regard, where Chelsea take advantage of the areas that are afforded to them in the wide areas, and look for the cutbacks into the box. Who's making those late runs? Who's making the near post run? Who's going back post? We just don't do that enough to really impact in the final third. And it comes down to repetition on the training pitch. We don't do enough of that, and it comes down to really orchestrating what we want to do. And we just don't do that enough. So much of what we do is just hit and hope, and hope that somebody gets on the end of it. And the more times you do that, the confidence is, just gets soaked up. We lose confidence the more times we cross balls to nobody. What do you expect to see happen when you're crossing the ball and nobody's getting on the end of it? What is the hope there? So, we got to move on. Obviously, we got Real Madrid in the Champions League, which is the next game. I do expect a different game. Obviously, we're going to see the return of N'Golo Kanté in that game. And again, because that Champions League fixture, European ties in general, aren't necessarily as physical as the games in the Prem, I do think that we do stand a chance of getting something out of that game. Call me an idiot, call me a fool for thinking that Chelsea might be able to do something against Real Madrid, given the state of affairs that we see in the Premier League week after week. But I do think that we're better suited for European Cup ties than we are for the Premier League right now. Premier League requires a lot of physicality all over the pitch, and we just don't have a lot of that. Whereas in the European Cup ties, I feel like there's a lot more room for us on the ball, there's a lot more time on the ball, and we can play through teams a little bit more. So let's hope that that's the case. Big game on Wednesday, and Frank Lampard's going to walk us into the Bernabeu. And we'll see what happens. But until then, keep the blue flag flying high and up the Chels. Peace.